The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Welcome to the program, and plenty to talk about. Caleb Calhoun, off the top of your head, it's getting to the point where we can do it easily. How many days till football time in Tennessee?
22.
All right, here we go.
By the way, it's one of the greatest Taylor Swift songs in history. I don't know.
There is no great Taylor Swift song in history. Hit like and subscribe. We've got a huge show coming up. I've got some new information that I can pass along via 4 Downs. As Tennessee with a scrimmage on Friday night. We'll discuss exactly the goals of that scrimmage and what the Vols need to accomplish in their first major practice of the season. Also, we'll have the stat of the day. Tennessee's comeback player of the year will be whom? That'll be today's tough question. A Florida fan trolls a Vols commitment, or is this a Florida defensive back, or is this a Florida commitment? Caleb, I want to get into that a little bit more, and why on earth do we react to social media in a negative way when somebody commits somewhere else? It never helps. Ranking Tennessee's schedule, who are the toughest games and coaches who could be on the hot seat, there are some surprising names. So go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. Caleb, how are you, sir?
Tremendous, Dave. Just absolutely tremendous.
Let me start real quick before we talk about the current Vols and Tennessee with a full-scale scrimmage on Friday night. You have to give Joe Milton his kudos for a long touchdown pass, and kudos to him. And you suddenly wonder who is most likely to play early in their career. Maybe it's Joe Milton instead of Hendon Hooker, partly because of the situation, but kudos to Joe Milton and what he did.
That people in Boston are excited about Joe Milton shows how little the Northeast follows college football. Because if you actually watch college football, you would know, guys, I'm warning you, Boston, you're not going to like it when he's your starter. I'm just telling you.
I don't know. I'm not ruling him out. And the reason is I've seen some guys change when they get paid. And I know he got paid something at Tennessee.
Spoken like a Celtics fan. You're a Boston sports fan, though, Dave. So, you know.
Well, but I've seen guys change when they get paid. That they didn't like contact, or they didn't like going to every single meeting. But when they start getting paid, they change. And I think that somebody that works with him with more typical footwork that behooves an NFL quarterback will help. I think Josh Heupel's footwork is taught to excel in his offense, and that's fine. I'm not ruling him out. This is Milton Love. Yes, Travis, this is Milton Love.
If what you were saying was the case, he would have balled out at Michigan, but he didn't. Michigan teaches footwork. Jim Harbaugh was running the Power Coast offense. That thoroughly prepares you for the NFL.
Maybe he just wouldn't accept impermissible contact from Michigan. That could be what it is. It is time for 4 Downs. Tennessee with a scrimmage on Friday night. There's a lot going on, kids. It's brought to you by our friends at Work Trucks. First, I want to remind you that the show is represented by Banks & Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
4 Downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
Four
Downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
I'm going to do an X factor because a couple of these we beat into the ground of ways that Tennessee needs to improve or key factors in preseason camp. So the X factor is going to be on our message board. 4th down is going to be one you have a question about. So we'll throw that out there. Now, some of them are going to be pretty obvious, but I have some insight into some players that I didn't have yesterday. And somebody posted on our YouTube page, I thought you guys were kind of crazy at times, but you've been on point for a lot of stuff, so I respect that. Well, thank you. And what I'm about to tell you, you're going to absolutely love. Are you ready?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe. Coop here. 1st down.
This is what I was told by somebody that I respect his football opinion more than 99% of the people I've ever met about Boo Carter. He is going to be a star. He is closer to Eric Berry than anybody thought possible. The name Del Carter came up. I'm telling you, this is someone who has seen him in person and talked to other people that have seen him multiple times. The praise was as strong as it could be. So goal of the scrimmage, lock down a starting job. It shouldn't take 3 scrimmages. You're that good, and they're giving you this opportunity. That is it. Goal number 1, lock down a starting job. Hit like and subscribe if you think I'm on the money with Boo Carter, because I can tell you from great sources I am.
Okay, so I got to you invoked the name.
This is another level. Is this not? I've told you the whole time I thought he was very good and probably would start at the latest by midseason, right? I'm taking it up a level. This goes up a level.
So you invoked 2 names, and I have to bring them both up. Dale Carter was a junior when he arrived at Tennessee because he was a junior college transfer.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding of Dale Carter, because of mistakes he made when playing at Tennessee, it wasn't like he was a super mature player. I mean, we're talking about a guy who did try to field a kick that went out of bounds. Now, he ran it back for a touchdown, so what do I know? But, I mean, you're not supposed to field a kick that goes out of bounds. That's destined to go out of bounds. And then you invoked Eric Berry. Eric Berry, as a freshman, was as mature as a 30-year-old NFL veteran. And so are you saying that Boo Carter, not from a talent perspective, but from a mentality perspective?
No, I'm not saying that. And I didn't get any insight. So I'm gonna sit on what I've known previously in that, yes, every young man needs to mature. All I'm adding to it is the physical ability. People that have seen him on the practice field, this is what I've been told. People that are objective to. So nobody that's just feeding me bull.
Okay.
That's what
I was going to say, because what was so unique about Eric Berry was he was so unusually mature as an athlete at 18. And you felt he was the captain of that team that made the SEC title game in 2007. It felt like he was the leader of the defense as a true freshman.
You know, I almost feel like it's easier to get an elite athlete than an elite character. It's really harder.
It's hard. I mean,
look at Joshua Josephs, and I don't want to rip him, but he's admitted that he went through a sophomore slump because he was jealous of James Pierce. You know, if you're just chopping wood every day and not worrying about that high character, high work ethic, then that doesn't happen. And he probably has a better year last year. And I think he'll bounce back from that. It's not a knock.
To be fair.
Yeah, go ahead.
To be fair to Joshua Josephs, Eric Berry was the James Pierce. So Eric Berry would never have lost his starting job to somebody like that because he would have been that guy. So.
I was not trying to make a comparison. What down, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. 2nd down.
Yeah, Peyton Lewis is this is a huge scrimmage for him. And this is based off new information that I've been told. They want him to grab that position, but it is really unknown at this point if he'll be able to do so because of what? Fill in the blank, Caleb.
I'm going to say pass pro.
That's exactly right. And that's just going to be a factor. But so if I had to predict right now, I would say he starts out as a non-starter and his play goes upward throughout the year. And he plays more and more. That's my prediction at this point. But this is a huge scrimmage for him.
So what you can do, Dave, is you can stand up and applaud me because that's something I have been saying all off season. I told you guys.
You have, and I always wanted to play the freshman card on you. And what I was told yesterday, as I was wrong, is that he has every opportunity to be the second tailback behind Dylan Sampson.
I told you guys all offseason they weren't convinced that Dylan Sampson could carry the load for a whole season and that they don't believe in Cam Seldon. I told you guys that. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to be proven right. Cam Seldon has Trent Richardson vision. I've always said that.
He's still banged up. I'm not willing to sell Cam Seldon yet. I'm willing to hold. I'm not buying. I'm not selling. I'm just holding because I think he could end up being good.
Gotta hurry because in about a week his stock will be collapsed.
Let me say this: Jabari Small good, not Jalen Wright good. That would be my prediction.
Jabari still had vision.
I don't think his vision is as bad as you. But anyway, Asia Cafe. Treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine, handcrafted from guarded family recipes. 5 locations in the Knoxville area. On a Hooker's Hangouts. We love it. Asia Cafe. 5 locations to choose from. AsiaCafe.org. AsiaCafe.org. Maybe a Hooker sushi roll coming up before long. What down is it, Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
All right, left guard. Left guard, bingo, bango. And if there, again, 4th down's open for you guys. If there's a question you have about Tennessee's scrimmage tonight, left guard, I think, based off who I've talked to, is going to be a bit of a battle there. I thought Andre Keurig was 90% the starter. I don't know that that's the case anymore. I think there's going to be a battle at left guard unless Andre Keurig shows up in this first scrimmage. That
Dave,
sounds like a broken record. We've been through this before, right?
Dave, you have covered Tennessee for 26 years now. Let's or not just Tennessee, but college football. I don't know how. I would say 20 of those years has been Tennessee, right?
Yes.
But you've covered other college football programs. If there's a returning starter,
my internship, it's like 27, just Tennessee. But anyway, thanks for making me feel.
If there's a returning starter at a position and a coach says there's a position battle there, that means they don't have a good player yet, right? That means they're desperate to find somebody decent.
Yes.
Exactly. But
every team has that.
This position battle isn't a battle of, oh, we got some good players at left guard. Let's see who's best. It's a, oh, God, please let us find a left guard who can fill that void. That's what that is. Right.
And I wouldn't make many judgments from the Chattanooga game because I think they like Dylan. Well, I was told, I don't think. They like Dylan Bishop a little bit more than
Deshaun.
A lot of Deshaun. Wait. Deshaun Bishop. They like him a little bit more than I thought at first.
So, running back?
Yep, he may get a few. I'm talking about garbage carries, Caleb. I'm not talking about anything significant. I don't think he's very good. And Khalifa Keith, to address all the running backs, Khalifa Keith is I was told, a good power back, which is what we expected, nothing new. And am I leaving anybody out? I think we've addressed all the running backs before we get to 4th down.
Yeah, we have.
Okay.
I think we have.
Let's get to 4 downs right now.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Okay. Ethan Davis is for real, and I expect him to show up in Tennessee's first scrimmage. Ethan Davis is definitely going to play. Caleb, we've discussed this, but there's always a part of me when you have 2 guys in Holden Stays and Miles Kitselman that have experience that, again, make me want to play the newcomer card. But in this particular case, you've been right. Ethan Davis is going to play even if they have to rotate 3 tight ends. He is going to be a part of this offense, no question. Based off who I talked to yesterday, the guy has changed his body tremendously. I tell you, it would change your business tremendously. Your thoughts on Ethan Davis, Caleb, is brought to you by Work Trucks, all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Now, time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while you have other places that just can't do the same. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips, and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process is quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for Work Trucks. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an app hide. work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, work truck supplies vehicles, to people like you, contractors, no dealership runaround. Work Trucks with an X, that's a fact. Downtown Birmingham, Clinton Highway in Knoxville, Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Don't risk burning your future and business with the wrong piece of equipment that burns your time. Work Trucks, LLC.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. Caleb, I think Ethan Davis is going to have an impact. I'm going to put the over-under receiving yards at 450. Over or under?
I think that would be the highest. I think that'd be the peak number of receiving yards tight ends ever had in Josh Heupel's system. So because of that, in his youth and Tennessee's depth at receiver, which we'll talk about at the pass catch rotation in a second segment, but I'm going to go under. But I will say I'm not confident in that bet, Dave. I'm not confident, but I will say I'm going to go under just because I don't think anybody's gone for over 450 as a tight end in Josh Heupel's system.
Yeah, that'd be a lot. I mean, but I do think he's that good. Now, nobody told me that. That is me saying that. I do think this. I think there is a significant talent drop-off. I'm talking about just pure physical talent when they do their pro day. I'm not talking about how they're practicing right now. I think there is a clear drop-off athletically, from what I was told, I don't think, from Ethan Davis to Holden Stays. And then I think there is another significant drop-off from Stays to Kitselman. So look for Kitselman to be your utility guy. Look for Stays to be your regular tight end and Davis to be your emerging star.
I could get with that. I could totally get with that. And again, I think the other two are more blockers.
That's not, for those that are new to the channel and don't know, that's not me speculating. That's talking to sources. So there you go.
Well, and there's two types of tight ends Heupel uses. Heupel sometimes uses a tight end just as a body. Is that fair to say? He just needs a body out there.
Yeah.
And sometimes he's like,
I need basically, yes.
Yeah, shield blocker. And then sometimes he needs an athlete. So I'm with you on Ethan Davis. I felt Princeton Fant was somewhat that a couple of years ago. I think the only reason Princeton Fant didn't emerge as more of a star is he just, I don't know. I think he had played too many positions and fought with too many injuries. But I felt like Princeton Fant had that potential. But I think Ethan Davis is more ready than Princeton Fant was a couple of years ago.
At the tight end position still, with the depth at wide receiver, it's hard for me not to want to see a four wide look, even though I don't think that's what Josh Heupel is comfortable with. Will we see that this year?
So we kind of debated this morning, funny enough, when we were wondering how is Tennessee going to do their rotation. Here's how I think they're going to do it. I think Tennessee is going to run 3 wide receivers and Ethan Davis one drive, and then they'll run 4 wide receivers the other drive. And I think that's how they're going to start doing it this year. I don't think they are that confident in the transfer tight ends they've brought in yet. And they don't have a blocking tight end like they had in Jacob Warren last year. So I think they're better off spreading the field with going 4 wide, and then with 4 wide receivers, and then having Ethan Davis in on the other drive. I think that's how they'll rotate out.
Here's why I like that. And it has to do with a couple of different players. Also, we'll have the comeback player of the year. Tennessee's wide receiver rotation, including tight ends, brought to you by Medicare Misty, no charge and regulated in over 40 states. Tennessee's tight ends, wide receivers, who I like based off conversations with sources. And in 30 seconds, I'll give you that.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Again, no charge for Medicare Misty services. Caleb, I am not willing to predict what Tennessee does in their pass catcher rotation just yet. So we're including tight ends. These aren't just receivers because I don't think they know. I think Stays and Kitselman are still learning the system. What I think about Kitselman is that he is going to be solid when he's on the field. I don't think he's going to make a lot of mistakes. I just think his upside is okay. I think the key is Ethan Davis, to be honest with you, whether or not they go a lot of 4 wide or not. If they feel great about Ethan Davis, I think it's typical one offense, which is 1 running back, a tight end, 3 wide receivers. I mean, Ethan Davis, to me, determines he's kind of a crossroads of this offense.
He is. And Heupel's really only turned a tight end heavily one time ever as an offensive coach, and it was when he was at Missouri in 2017. And he had that tight end whose last name that I cannot pronounce. So it started with an O, and I never got it right. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to say it here.
At least you're honest.
Yes. So I will say that he might see that in Ethan Davis this year. That would be a huge plus for Tennessee if he can do that. And now the question becomes, has Ethan Davis picked up blocking schemes? Because that's going to be crucial for tight ends, because particularly when you don't know if you have a running back that can pick up pass pro, although Cam Seldon is good at pass pro. I haven't taken that away from him. He just has Ray Charles vision when he takes the ball and tries to find the hole. But I think Ethan Davis, that would be the question. Because one of the things you like to do with the tight end, right, Dave? You still, even in Heupel's system with the wide splits, you want to work with you want to be able to keep the defense guessing a little bit on what the tight end's going to do. Is he going to stay back and block, or is he going to break out? That's still a factor in football, right? Even with the spread off, even with the way offenses are spread out today, guessing what the tight end's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's scary about Tennessee, if they have Ethan Davis, if he accepts this role as a star, and I'm not talking about just as a good underclassman, because he redshirted last year. I mean, technically he's still a redshirt freshman, but he's had a year. He's put on like 40 pounds, and he makes Tennessee incredibly tough to predict. Because let's go back. Who's Tennessee's second best slot receiver to Jalen Hyatt? Under Heupel.
Under Heupel, their second, the one who was behind Jalen Hyatt when
second best in his 4 years, second best slot receiver.
Velus Jones Jr. Velus Jones.
Okay. I think Ethan Davis can threaten an offense in the passing game as much as Velus Jones, unless they switch to dime coverage. Now, flip side.
But if they switch to dime coverage, Tennessee can run all day down the field on you with that way they run that offense.
Can he run block? And I think with the added weight, he can.
That's the big question. Correct.
Right. So if you have, go ahead.
Are we agreeing that do you think it's Davis and 4 wide, or do you think it's Davis and then the other drives they'll do Kitzelman and stays? Because we know Davis isn't going to play every drive. Heupel doesn't play tight ends every drive, the same tight end every drive. He's never done that.
No, I think it'll end up alternating between Stays and Davis. I think that'll be your alternation when the games matter in November, and it'll be some Kitzelman in the early months. That's my projection based off what I have been told. Now, I'm hearing Brazel may have took Thornton's starting spot. I do want to talk about Thornton specifically, but I'm not sure that's the case. I think he may have taken his slot receiver spot, but I think Thornton still has a spot. The show represented by Banks and Jones. Banks and Jones, we appreciate them. Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, and unbelievable because they play to win. Other attorneys do not want to go to trial, but Banks and Jones, T. Scott Jones will do that. Banks and Jones. Caleb, as far as the receiver rotation, I also believe that you'll see Dante Thornton at the outside wide receiver spot instead of the slot. And I think there was a reason that Dante Thornton played slot last year. I'm going to defend Josh Heupel for a second because you were a little bit critical of him for misevaluating that talent. I think Tennessee was uncomfortable with their other slot receivers other than Squirrel White. And he was forced to play some other positions at times in which he wasn't very comfortable. So I think Tennessee, and if Ramel Keaton's your baseline, I think Tennessee was a little short on receivers last year.
Injuries played a huge role in that. So I would agree.
Yes.
Here's what I think the goal is this year. And this is why I think they're going to do Ethan Davis one drive and go full wide the next. They're going to have their penciled in starters being Brew McCoy and Squirrel White. That's set, right? At wide out and slot.
Right. Yes.
I think they want to alternate Mike Matthews, Chris Brazel, and Dante Thornton on the other side. And it's easier to alternate like that if you go 4 wide every other drive. So we talked about this the other day. Does Tennessee want to go deeper at receiver? Maybe Heupel's going to split the baby. He has his clear-cut go-to and his clear-cut slot guy, but he's going to split the rest of them to where they're all going to get a lot of yards. Maybe that's how he goes about this.
Okay, but there's one problem with that. You're dealing with a first-time, and I know the Iowa game, you're dealing with a first-time starter at quarterback. So you...
What is this, the 90s? Who cares?
Well, I'm just... Are you gonna start running multiple looks in an offense, a 4 wide and a 3 wide look? See, I mean, you're gonna have to be comfortable in a totally different look. And you're talking about some young receivers too. Are you too young to go 4 wide is worth the conversation.
That's a fair point at receiver. If Nico gets confused by doing that, given how easy this offense is to figure out, and given the fact that he's now entering his second year, or actually he's already been working in the offense for almost 2 years now. If Nico gets confused by that, he's got major issues. This is the easiest offense in football to figure out. Heupel's whole system is read a safety. And as long as the quarterback and receiver read the safety the same way, there are no issues. So it shouldn't matter if you go with an extra tight end or an extra receiver. If they can't figure that out, then Nico is not what I think Nico is going to be.
And you think he is?
A generational quarterback created in a lab to run Josh Heupel's system. Josh Heupel met with an evil comic book scientist and said, "Create me a quarterback." And what popped out of the lab was Nico Iamaleava.
All right. Well, Tennessee has a lot of quarterbacks now. And, Trevor points out this is pro football. No more too young stuff. Trevor, you bring up a great point. I was doing a Nashville radio show, and they said, what's with them taking all these quarterbacks? And I said, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, they can't play all of them. So what are they telling them in recruiting? I'm like, they're telling them they're getting a job. I mean, coming out of high school, probably making 6 digits is probably entry-level NIL. And if they don't like Knoxville because they don't play enough or they get asked to leave, they've made money. I have no sympathy for that person anymore. Used to be, I would have fought to the hilt for the player. They're getting paid.
I agree. I have no qualms about lighting players up now.
Yeah,
and I love it.
The host is like, oh, I guess that's a good point. I mean, I was just like, that's changed everything. That's changed everything completely. All right, so coming up, we've got the stat of the day, this day in Tennessee sports history. I want to remind you that Rick Terry at Rick Terry Jewelry Design is absolutely fantastic. Rick Terry at Rick Terry Jewelry Design has the Fire Opals, and they are tremendous. The Fire Opals are affordable game day jewelry that you can have for your loved ones. So please support our sponsors. That's why we're here. There's the QR code so you can say hello to Rick Terry and he always calls me Hooks. Tell him Hook said hello and Caleb said hello and Off the Hook Sports sent you. Again, support our sponsors. That's why we're here. Rick Terry Jewelry Design. Tennessee's comeback player of the year based off conversation with sources up next. And it's a guy that Caleb was just ripping on like a day ago. So maybe he'll prove Caleb wrong, or maybe he was listening. 2 minutes Off the Hook Sports.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
23 F-150 Super Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
He tries very hard. The Dave Hooker Show.
All I know is when we win a game, it's a team win. When we lose a game, it's a team loss.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable!
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
The show represented by Banks & Jones. Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win with Banks & Jones. Did you know if you hit that like button that it helps support our channel? That's all you got to do is hit the like button, and more people open up to the show, and we continue to grow. And we hope to be with you for like the next decade is the plan with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker coming up.
And the more likes we get, we should start setting a like threshold.
Yes.
I'll do an OnlyFans video for you guys for every like milestone we get.
It's going to be a hard pass. No pun intended. Let's go to today's tough. Have we done today's tough question yet? Huh? Or
no, you started with 4 downs today, man. You mixed it up.
I like to throw people.
That's
off
usually a fourth quarter thing, 4 downs. But if it's me, it would always be 4 downs because I never punt.
That's true. Today's tough question is now.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Other than Brew McCoy, who will be Tennessee's comeback player of the year, Caleb Calhoun?
And let's be clear on this, guys. Dave did this on purpose. It just now said other than Brew McCoy because he didn't say that this morning. He wants to force me to make in-game adjustments. Okay,
right.
Thank God I'm not John Chavis. I'd be like lost at this point having to make in-game adjustments. But I would say got a few names. I think I know where you're going, so I'm going to go. You know what? I know where you're going, so you start on this.
Okay. Well, I'm going Dante Thornton. I was told that Dante had a lot of anxiety last year. He put too much pressure on himself as a transfer. It was a lot. I think we were still dealing with young guys. I know they're getting paid, so we don't have to be as empathetic as we were. But I think he will be, other than Brew McCoy, Tennessee's comeback player of the year. We want to hear from you on the message board as we talk Tennessee's comeback player of the year. So now you got to go. So pressure's on you.
All right. I think I got you beat. A young man by the name of Keenan Peely would be the comeback player of the year. Missed the entire season last year except for a half. And we think has all SEC potential this year. So I'm going to go Keenan Peely. Now, how late does a season-ending injury have to happen for comeback player of the year to count?
I don't understand the question.
Like if you get hurt and because you mentioned Dante Thornton. So actually, like if you get hurt in November, can you be comeback player? But I guess you can because Dante Thornton was hurt in November. So I'm going to throw another one out at you, Dave. I'm going to throw another one that you threw me a curveball. I'm ready to curveball you. This is a slider. All right, okay. This is a sinker.
Scared.
Javonte Spraggins, who was hurt, who played hurt down the stretch of last year and then finally got knocked out for the year, I think, in late November. I think fully healthy, Javonte Spraggins could be the best guard in the SEC. I see Trey Smith potential with him when he's fully healthy. Am I crazy? Am I on crack?
It's a little crazy. I don't think he's going to be that good, but I think you nailed it as far as the comeback player of the year. Candidates, except for one guy. What about defense?
I said Keely Peely.
I got another one. Joshua Josephs.
He wasn't really even hurt last year.
I'm just talking comeback player of the year. He got down over James Pierce becoming a superstar.
You sound like you're doing most improved.
No, comeback player of the year. But what's
Joshua Joseph is not going to see Joshua Joseph is not going to see a larger role this year. He's still going to be the backup to James Pierce.
I thought about you saying that, and then I thought to myself, his numbers actually could be inflated if Tennessee gets up and he's the starter in the second half. I mean,
are we going to count that as comeback player of the year?
Well, I think he is going to flash at least a dozen times where you'll say that's a special player. And as in a backup role, you would have to agree that's pretty good, right?
Yes, that's fair. This is why, by the way, whenever I do
give me a dozen flashes.
Whenever I do like breakout players for a year, I had to learn this 2022 with Heupel's system with all the times he brought the backups in. I've kind of come to the realization that you got to be very careful with backup stats in college football. It's not like the NFL. Pretty much every stat in the NFL is a valuable stat, right? Unless it's like the week 17 and you're resting your starters. You're almost never in a situation where you pull your starters in the NFL, right?
Right.
Yeah. College football, I'm realizing, man, stats get inflated and meaningless really, really fast in that sport.
Yeah. And comeback player of the year, somebody asked about the Dante Thornton thing. We had him hyped up so much. And I'm not just talking about you and me. I'm talking about everybody. And then he had the injury and he didn't play well. Listen, there are physical limitations and there are times you put too much pressure on yourself and there are mental limitations. And I think that he put too much on himself. So I'm going to back him for that. They'll back you at Quality Tire Pros. The Eberle family in Chattanooga has been serving the community since 1947. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more. All work covered by a nationwide warranty. Cherokee Blvd or online, qualitytirepros.com, qualitytirepros.com. Stop by and tell them that Dave and Caleb said, hey, Bo. Say hello, Bo, and go to qualitytirepros.com. Caleb, the best candidate for Tennessee's overall success we haven't mentioned. If Andre Keurig is the comeback player of the year and turns out to be an all-SEC guard, which would be a major leap, that would change, I think, a lot of people. If you knew that, I think that would change a lot of people in how they predicted Tennessee's season. I mean, it wouldn't me. I think it would affect a game prediction from some people.
This is why we're speaking past each other. I'm realizing when you think comeback player, you do think most improved. When I think comeback player, I think a player who got hurt the previous year and is coming back from injury. Andre Keurig wasn't hurt last year. He just sucked. Okay. So it's, right.
I'm including just being bad. Arian. So if you want to include just hurt,
his skill set was injured last year.
Well, I mean, but there are too many. I can't believe it's a skill set because too many people have offered him a scholarship to play college football. Something's not clicking. I don't know what it is, but physically, I believe that he is able to do that. Arian Carter getting a ton of votes on the message board, and that's
breakout.
That's both. I mean, he got injured last year, so couldn't it be both?
I mean, even if he had been fully healthy, he wasn't going to play much last year. Aaron Beasley had that role. Aaron Beasley to Arian Carter was the Joe Milton to Nico Iamaleava. It was a stopgap year while they both learned the system, and then they were ready to step in and dominate the next year.
I think they would have used Arian Carter a lot more with Pilley's injury. I don't know that he would have played Mike, but I think they would have found a way to get him.
They might have moved Beasley back over there. That's true. They might have moved Beasley to Mike and Carter to.
That's what I thought they were going to do, and I hadn't been tipped off that Arian was banged up at the time. So, but that's what I thought they were going to do. But listen,
does Josh Heupel? Sorry. I was going to say, does Josh Heupel not realize that sometimes, because of people like me, he hurts his players when he's not open about the fact that they're hurt because he doesn't let us know they're hurt. So I lied into them like I did Dante Thornton last year, not knowing the actual situations behind the scenes. And now I look like a terrible person because Dante Thornton was battling injury the whole year last year. And I mean, I don't think Josh Heupel does this. I get the whole family culture. Shouldn't you be, just to protect your players, be open about when they're hurt?
I think he could handle those situations better. And I think you have to remember one thing that's very important. And take 15 seconds and learn about Varner Ford, and I'll tell you what that is.
Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Caleb, he's still a young coach. Of course he's going to learn these things along the way. And of course he's going to handle the media better. That's something you don't do until you're a head coach most of the time at most programs. He's going to handle the media better, but I'll be frank, I think he's in the upper third, not to get sidetracked, of how he handles the media now. I mean, I wish he would say more, but it's smart for him not to.
Yeah, I understand, but I just think it causes really, really, really big issues when he does that.
Well, specifically, it may have put too much pressure on Cooper Mays last year. I know that's kind of what you're referring to, and I agree with that, but I don't know what you're supposed to do in that position sometimes. I'm not a big fan of lying, but there's times where you can't be completely truthful. You just can't, Caleb.
No, I know you can't, but, if people aren't performing.
You would have liked to have known that about Dante Thornton. I
would have, because I would have been a lot friendlier to Dante Thornton otherwise. Now, you say puts too much pressure on himself. That gives me, okay, this is very triggering for a lot of people, myself included, because I've always defended his legacy. I think the idea that Peyton Manning is not clutch is one of the dumbest narratives in the history of sports, and not borne out by anybody who does any level of research, because he's actually one of the most clutch players. It's the same argument with people in LeBron. People who say LeBron's not clutch don't know data. He's the most clutch player in NBA history, actually. Same with Peyton Manning, the most clutch player in NFL history. However, I do think there were times when Peyton Manning was young. Do you think one of the reasons he struggled in the postseason was he put way too much pressure on himself?
Yes.
At times?
Yes.
To try to make things happen?
Yes.
And you're saying Dante Thornton is like that?
Yes, I think that's exactly what he did last year. Now, I'm not saying he'll do it for the rest of his life, but going from Oregon to Tennessee, I'm just going to say it. You, me, the entire media asked too much of that young man. He was a role player at Oregon, and suddenly he's supposed to come in and be Jalen Hyde, who won the Biletnikoff Award. Hey, I'll point the finger back at me on occasion when I was wrong, and I think I put too much on him. I think we all expected too much. He looked fantastic. He looked like a bigger, faster Jalen Hyatt. But in retrospect, it's a heck of a transition to make.
It's funny you say that. You're right, because when people talk clutch, it's easy to be clutch when you come in without expectations, right? Because, okay, you can perform in big moments. No one's going to – like when people say Tom Brady was so clutch in those first 3 Super Bowls. Well, yeah, he was a 6th-round draft pick. No one was going to blame him if they lost those Super Bowls, right? No one was going to blame him at all.
Yeah, and let's talk about for a second, Josh Heupel may have hurt him some. Well, the media probably hurt Dante Thornton some because the amount of coverage. Can you imagine Dante Thornton, who goes from Oregon, which probably has, 3 or 4 beat reporters, Caleb, 5 or 6, maybe. Tennessee, there's just no point in going to some of their press conferences because they have 50 reporters there, so you don't get to ask a question. Can you imagine when he Googled to see the response for when he chose Tennessee and there were like 30 stories? And can you imagine when he ran through the T for the first time? Nothing against Oregon, but there's no comparison to some of the incredible stadiums in the South, including Neyland Stadium. We put too much on him.
We put a lot on him. We absolutely put a lot on him. That is very, very true. But it's no more than we typically put on players, and you may have a point, but there are a lot of players we've seen come from the West and deal with a lot of pressure and embrace it. I'll just give you, who Dante Thornton actually reminds me of? Player who came from the West that was a very fast receiver for Tennessee?
I don't.
Similar name, Dante Stallworth. Came from California, Sacramento to be exact. Came to Tennessee. Expectations for him were sky high the minute he stepped foot on campus, weren't they?
Yes.
And now, to be fair, you're right. Stallworth redshirted a year. That 98 season, he redshirted. He was a practice player. But they immediately turned to him as a go-to receiver by his sophomore year at Tennessee.
No, and where is Dante Thornton from originally? Can you help me with that real quick?
I thought he was from Georgia, but I'll look that up.
Because when I look at him again, I think we put a lot of pressure on a lot of guys.
He's from Maryland, from Baltimore.
Okay, so he shows up at Tennessee. There's no way he knew what SEC football was like in that very first home game. There's no way.
No, there's not. But again, I just threw at you.
No, and Derek, you say Velus Jones didn't have an issue. There are transfers that aren't going to have issue, and that's what we should hope
Dante Stallworth or a Casey Clausen
from time to time. But to expect it, I think, is a little strong. Caleb, we lost you for a second.
Okay, say what you said again.
I think you hope. There's a difference between hoping for an immediate impact player and expecting an immediate impact player. I think you hope that anybody Tennessee gets in the transfer portal is an impact player, but I don't know that you hang your hat on it day to day.
But I guess where I'm at is like, okay, let's take transfer out of it before I got cut out.
Can I interrupt you for half a second? Like Jackson Moy, he's going to be a fantastic surprise. We're the ones talking about him because we know more than most people, but there's no pressure on him to do anything. And
There's
I think
not.
easy.
But okay, but what about this? I don't know if I got cut out before I said it, but Casey Clausen's from California. He was thrown in as a starter as a freshman. He was ready for SEC football on the demands. I mean, he was ready immediately.
Again, I think I think everybody's different. I think he is one of the most tough-minded individuals I ever covered. I think his road record speaks to that. He was a road warrior. He was incredible. So
he embraced SEC fans hating him.
He did. And I think everybody's different. I think you're somewhere on that scale of confidence. And perhaps his confidence was a little shaken when he saw how big Tennessee football actually was. And guys, it's absolutely huge compared to football in Maryland or football in Oregon. I don't think there's any question about that.
Keenan Peele's still going to be comeback player of the year. Sorry.
Who is?
Keenan Peele will still be comeback player of the year.
Well, it's going to be Brew, right?
It'll be Peele. Brew's going to have to split reps with everybody. Peele is the main starting linebacker. He's not going to split reps with anybody at middle linebacker.
And increased recruiting coverage, increased connection with me and Caleb Calhoun, thanks to Sports Treasures and Rick Terry. So here's the deal. Pretty cool. If you sign up for just $9.98, you get a Hooker t-shirt just for being a member, and you will be in our monthly prize drawing from Sports Treasures, in which we'll give away a prize like, say, a John Henderson mini helmet autographed by the man himself. That's what we'll do. And then the prizes get even bigger just for being a member, and you can be a free member. The QR code is right there, or you can click on it in our message board at any point. Just by being a free member, you can win a Garmin watch worth $1,000. Get ready for Rick's Grade 8 Garmin Challenge, brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. Rick Terry Jewelry Design will provide that Garmin watch to one lucky listener of Off the Hook Sports. All you have to do is be a free member of Hooker's Corner, which is right there, and you can link on that and subscribe to the YouTube page. It is pretty simple, so we want you to take advantage of that. Time for this day in Tennessee sports history, or Tennessee sports history. What state? Yes, Tennessee. What do you got, Caleb?
Somber one. 80 years ago today, one of Tennessee's own football players would not make it home from World War II. Bill Knowling was killed in France, died in action on August the 9th, 1944. One of 4 Vols who died in service in World War II. This was 2 months after D-Day. Being in France, I don't have any evidence, but I would assume, given the fact that he was stationed in France, he probably was involved in D-Day as well. And so I wanted to send him a shout out. Tennessee resumed play a month later. For those who don't know, they canceled the 1943 season, and Tennessee resumed football in 1944. but Bill Nolan did die. He played for Tennessee from 1940 to 1942, helped Neyland capture a national title in 1940. So wanted to send him a shout out. And also because of people like him who likely were involved in D-Day, makes Derek Dooley look all that stupider when he compares Tennessee to the Germans in World War II in Normandy.
Well, that's true. Can we discuss for a moment the tradition that Tennessee had of their only retired jersey numbers were to those that had fallen in World War II, which was a cool tradition that a lot of people didn't know about until they got a little bit older. And then you start having the jersey retirement talk, and they end up retiring Reggie White's jersey, Peyton Manning's jersey, and Al Wilson's jersey, right?
Right. No, Doug Atkins, not Al
Doug
Wilson.
Atkins. Excuse me. It should.
Al Wilson doesn't meet the criteria.
Yeah, silly. It should be both if it's going to be one. Did you have a problem with them including them in retired jerseys, considering the significance of the other retired jerseys? And I got the same question for those on the message board. To me, it felt like a PR stunt.
It was, and I don't know why they decided to do it, but I think there was a lot of sympathy when Reggie White died because it was so unexpected. Remember?
Yeah, but I think I can answer the reason they did it. I think it's because their program was terrible.
You think that? Well, no, they did it in 2005 when they had a top 5 program at the time. That's when they retired those 3 jerseys.
Okay.
Then everybody thought they were coming back. I think
that's when everybody else still believed in Butch, but I didn't. But go ahead.
No, 2005. This is the Fulmer years.
Oh, so okay. So why did they do that?
I think there was a lot of sympathy for when Reggie White passed away. And I think Tennessee wanted to let everybody remember that Reggie White played for Tennessee. This is my conspiracy theory. I think Fulmer, for a recruiting perspective, wanted the world to know that Reggie White played for Tennessee because he felt it'd be good for recruiting. So they retired Reggie White's jersey, and I think they decided if we're going to retire his, and we have to retire Doug Atkins and Peyton Manning's because they kind of meet a similar criteria for pro success. And I think that's where that came.
Did you think, and the question for the message board, was it disrespectful for Tennessee to retire those jerseys?
I'm going to say yes. Because, again, but you're talking to somebody, Dave, who doesn't like retired jerseys in general. I don't like deifying people. Because if you deify somebody, look, I don't believe in cancel culture, but 100 years down the road, you're going to come back and be like, oh, maybe they felt or believed something that is kind of inappropriate at this point. You didn't think about that at the time. You know what I mean? These are humans. They're all humans who performed a great thing by playing a game, who were great at this athletic event that they were part of. You don't deify them by retiring their numbers. What are you going to do? Run out of numbers? Like, what happens at some point if Josh Heupel, Dave, all of a sudden has like a string of All-Americans and Heisman winners? You got to retire all their numbers now because you retired Peyton's, Doug Atkins, and Reggie White's.
No, I agree with that. And, it's a good problem to have, but the quicker you retire jerseys, the faster you're going to have it. Set me up with a little Twitter trolling, if you will, between the University of Florida and the University of Tennessee, as the Vols apparently one of their commitments has been targeted. That's a little bit odd. Brought to you by Apex Apparel Group Design. 15% off of your first order. Call Tyler, 865-919-3001, 865-919-3001. All kinds of apparel for your company, spirit wear as well. What's this Florida trolling going on for one of Tennessee's top prospects?
Yeah, so a recent Tennessee commitment, Laganza Hayward, who committed to Tennessee back in just a couple of weeks ago, out of Georgia. Florida fan tweeted out, the real DBU should have joined, and it was in reference to Laganza Hayward, and Hayward responds saying, no, I shouldn't have. Tennessee is home. And I think I'll let you go first because I have some thoughts that maybe this chat room won't like.
Well, I don't believe you should tweet at players because they're 17-year-old kids. And I think that if you do, it should be overly positive. These guys have achieved their dreams and achieved their goals. And I'm sorry that it may not be your school they chose, but it should be celebratory from them. And I've been close to situations where kids have gotten ripped on Twitter and social media. And to me, it's incredibly distasteful. some of the things that I have seen. So I feel like that Florida fan is having a little bit of fun, but be careful. Don't cross the line of name calling, or don't cross the line of, I don't know. We know where the line is. That one didn't cross the line, but I think it shows that Florida's a little bit desperate, because I don't think Hayward was ever considering the University of Florida seriously, based off what I was told.
No, I don't either. And remember 2 months ago when people thought Billy Napier was on a roll on recruiting, and now that's not happening. I agree. I think this is all in good fun, because it's like, I should have chosen Florida. That's totally fine. You do cross lines, though, and oftentimes the lines don't cross on Twitter. They're worse now because of Twitter. But Dave, I've read stories about the treatment of T. Martin in the state of Alabama after he committed to Tennessee, and like they basically just there were stores that refused to sell his mom things because he committed to.
Well, I'll give you a worse example. I don't know that he wants it out there, but I know of a Tennessee offensive lineman whose mother worked for the South Carolina state government, and she was fired when he committed to Tennessee.
That's insane. That's absolutely insane. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I don't know that he wants it out there, so I don't want to say the name, but I may have reported that. I'm not even sure. But
well, there was a gas station.
He was basically told, it's like, I assume you're moving to Knoxville now. I mean, that is, sometimes we take recruiting a little far, don't we?
Oh yeah. Well, when the worst we all know is when Peyton Manning committed to Tennessee. I don't know if you guys know this, but Archie Manning had a gas station he would stop at on the way from New Orleans to Oxford to go to Ole Miss games. And after Peyton Manning committed to Tennessee, the owner of the gas station said, "I don't want you coming back here anymore. You're not welcome here."
Yeah, but the thing that's different now, Caleb, is that everybody's accessible via social media. So at least if I did it to your face and it's anything offensive enough, you can punch me in the nose. You know, it's Mike Tyson that says social media has made a lot of people forget what it's like to get punched in the nose. And some people need to get punched in the nose that are ripping 17-year-old kids.
What was it Drake said? Trigger fingers turn to Twitter fingers. And it's a great line.
I've heard that, but I like it.
Yeah. Trigger fingers turn to Twitter fingers. And I agree. And I think that, but I also think, and this is my very unpopular take. And Lagonza Hayward, this is my advice to you. Because of social media, you're going to get a lot of unwarranted, unfostered rage hates. Brush it off. I'm sorry, and because I'm going to warn you right now, I dismiss coaches when they say they're getting death threats on Twitter. I don't care, because everybody's getting death threats on Twitter. So I'm going to say this ahead of time. Brush it off. I don't think Lagonza Hayward's upset by this tweet to his face. I think he was just responding and having a little fun with it.
I think it's good for Tennessee in that it shows he's completely committed. I've thought about writing a book called Getting Your Kid Recruited for Dummies. And you know what the first chapter would be?
What's that?
Get off social media completely. That would be, if my son was, now it would be tough with what we do. But if I did something else for a living, the first thing I would do when that first scholarship came down the pike is I would delete my social media account, because I wouldn't want to be attacked by reporters and recruiters. And listen, and I would have one separate phone call. Trust me, I could write Getting Your Kid Recruited for Dummies. I could do that.
Oh, that's actually a great idea. I would actually disagree with you on, in the age of NIL, Dave, though, you can't take off social media. Social media is such a vessel for you to make money for yourself now that, you were probably right before you could make money, but now that you can make money off social media, I think you got to go all in. I'll say this, though. The other hot take, Twitter guy wasn't lying. I mean, Florida kind of is DBU. Never thought about it, but I'm like, Tennessee's wide receiver U and Penn State was linebacker U. Florida has been a factory for elite defensive backs over the years.
More than LSU?
I think they're close. Florida and LSU are close to each other. Florida did have Reggie Nelson, Joe Hayden, back in the day, Lito Shepherd. I thought when he played in college, I thought Lito Shepherd was the best cornerback I ever saw in the SEC at that time.
Yeah, he's a pretty good player. I wonder too, because somebody posted this on the message board, so I want to address it. How much of this is a sign of Florida's desperation? Because looking at them right now, they are ranked 40th in the nation in recruiting. And my goodness, I never would have guessed it would be this bad. I've got on a quick count, I've got 12 teams ahead of them. You might want to check my math in recruiting, but my goodness, it feels like you could fall out of bed and do better than 40th for detail-oriented Billy Napier.
I don't know how I feel about how I can't gauge Florida. You know a couple of people that are down there. You're very well connected to some sources that cover Florida. They seem to be still more defensive of Billy Napier than, I'll give you an example, Tennessee with Butch Jones. I can tell you this. When I was covering Tennessee and Butch Jones in 2017, Dave, I kid you not, fans were actively rooting for commits to leave and flip. They wanted Butch Jones embarrassed so badly so he could get fired in disgrace. They were wanting Tennessee to lose. There was a whole contingency of fans rooting for Alabama to cover the spread against Tennessee that year, and the spread was like 28 points. And people were so upset with Butch Jones and how annoying he had gotten that they were just ready. They wanted everything wrong. So that's why it was funny when Cade Mays first flipped his commitment from Tennessee. I think a lot of Tennessee fans didn't say a lot of negative things because they were like, hey, it's like, we want him gone. It's Butch Jones. That's what they were thinking. But then when Jeremy Pruitt took over as head coach, I will say Tennessee fans behaved very badly to Cade Mays after he flipped to Georgia. What were you going to do if you were Cade Mays in that moment?
No, you had no choice to go to Georgia. You ended up coming back to Tennessee. Over 100 people in the chat, so please hit the like button. Don Self, State Farm customer service still matters, especially when you need that claim taken care of. For 40 years, they built their business on taking care of their customers in the greater Chattanooga area. Call 423-396-2126. The number right down below, or donself.net, donself.net. And if Florida doesn't feel desperate, they should, because I've got real concern, and I know the transfer portal, you can build it back quicker than you could, but they don't have to look very far to the west to see what happens when a coach decides to go ahead and throw in the towel in recruiting, because it happened at Florida State with Jimbo Fisher. And they were left with a roster bereft of talent. And again, it's difficult to do that in the state of Florida. So if I'm the University of Florida, I'm feeling desperate. I'm concerned. My recruiting's bad. I mean, to not be top 20 in the state of Florida is befuddling to me. It really stuns me. And somebody pointed out on the message board, I did not know they were that low.
Yeah, I mean, I got to be honest. I wasn't totally sure they were that low either. It's actually crazy to think about. There was a year recently, and Dave, this is kind of just indicative of where things are down in that state, but I think it was 2021. 2021, Florida State, Florida, nor Miami finished in the top 25. How does that happen?
I don't know. It's difficult. Now, there's a lot of competition now, and the budgets are bigger. It used to be Tennessee had success in South Florida because they could go there as often as they wanted. They had no restrictions on budget. So a lot of schools have more budgets, so there's more competition. It's people think more competition, more schools. It's not more schools. It's more schools can go more often and do a better job. But you look at Florida's class. They've got 12 commits right now, and 5 are 4-star. And the rest are 3-star commitments. Wow. That's bad. So if you're a Tennessee fan, you're rooting for that. If you're a Florida fan, you should be very concerned. And if you want to correct me on the message board, give it a shot. I respond. Hit that like button if you don't care, because we greatly appreciate it. And it opens us up to more people as the show continues to grow. The Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House chat with 2T's.com, Hemp House chat with 2T's.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. The promo code HOOKED for 10% off. Ranking Tennessee's opponents up next. Some surprises. Coaches who could be on the hot seat after the 2024 season. I can guarantee you there will be a name or two that will surprise you there. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. We're represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. BanksandJones.com.
Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, BanksJones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
I don't think Tennessee got the easiest draw in terms of schedule. I think that's Texas. I don't think they got the toughest draw in terms of schedule. That's debatable. But I think they got the top half in terms of schedule and maybe even a little bit higher than that. Let's talk some Tennessee football schedule, brought to you by our good friends at City Heating and Air Conditioning. 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company. Says you may need a new unit that could cost thousands or more. Integrity matters. City Heating and Air. cityheatandair.com. So, Caleb, in general, if you were to give this a schedule a grade in difficulty, A+ being, my goodness, that is the toughest schedule I have ever seen, F being what Vanderbilt plays, where would you have this schedule in terms of difficulty?
Relative to Tennessee football history, this is a C+. It's
which is good, in my opinion. As a matter of fact, I'd rather you say D-, because if you win 10 games in the SEC, you're going to make the playoff. So I argue the other 4 opponents should be incredibly easy, and we'll get to them. But to me, you saying C+ is good news. I'd make it even easier.
Oh, that's what I mean. Yeah, it's one of the easier schedules in Tennessee football history. It's one of the easier schedules in Tennessee football history. It is
C+
not
would be middle of the pack, right?
That you're right. That's probably true. I did say relative to Tennessee football, didn't I? So you're right. D. I'll go D. Okay, because Tennessee thinking like, yeah, like this is not. Again, you can criticize them all you want, but like I think Derek Dooley played the toughest schedule in history in 2011 with Tennessee when they had to play the top 3 teams from the West: Alabama, LSU, and Arkansas, who finished 1, 2, and 3, and that was their 3 West opponents from the SEC that year. So I think that things have gotten a lot more favorable for Tennessee over the years.
Okay, now we're having a little issue with our poll question on our YouTube page, so I would like for you to just type in what opponent you think that is let's say the X factor as far as could turn Tennessee's season from a contender to a championship, because we're on board that Tennessee is a contender and will make the college football playoff. We haven't given our complete predictions, but we're there on that and feel very strongly about that. I don't know anybody else that has gone quite that far, so hang your hat on that. And we've been right a lot lately, so we're pleased with that. So let's start with the obvious one, which is Kent State. Well, I thought the obvious one was going to be Chattanooga. But you say Kent State is worse than Chattanooga, which will be the opener.
Yes, Kent State is worse than Chattanooga. Guys, sometimes those lower level FBS schools are worse than the really good FCS schools. And Kent State went 1-11 last year with the new head coach, Kenny Burns. And Kenny Burns is the worst coach in college football. And I got to just play a quick clip for you to wait. Can I play a clip for you to show why?
Yes, as long as you promise not to include him on the social media pushes.
Okay, fine. I won't include him on the social media pushes.
Actually, include him. Go ahead and play it.
This is funny. It's one of the worst things, the biggest red flag a coach has ever said. Here we go.
People are going to tell you that you cannot be a head coach without being a coordinator, without being someone who's had play calling experiences, and I get it, I do. But to me, that wasn't my desire. I never had the desire to call plays. I never had the desire to sit up top and look down and make the adjustments from that standpoint.
I never had the desire to make adjustments or scheme. I think
plays
or call plays.
Does it? I would think every coach would want to call plays. Nobody, I mean, can you imagine if you and I, not to oversimplify this, we're playing NCAA football and I say, Caleb, let's play. And you go, okay, I'm going to beat you. And I said, no, I got a new way to play. I'm going to call the play and then hand you the controller. I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, I bet Glenn Ellerby wants to call plays. I bet Rodney Garner wouldn't mind calling plays if they said, give it a shot. I mean, that's like not wanting to have 1 million viewers. That's like, oh my gosh. Okay, now don't attach him. All right, so
that's why they're below Chattanooga, by the way.
Okay, some insight into Chattanooga. Some of you know, I spent some time there. I got a lot of respect for Rusty Wright. You point out he's 30-2. He coaches a physical style of ball, whereas some people would go to Chattanooga and maybe do something creative offensively to try to manufacture wins. Caleb, he coaches a physical team. Now, I don't think that'll matter because of the talent gap, but that's the type of team you'll see. You got UTEP at number 10.
Yes, and it was close between Chattanooga and UTEP, believe it or not, because, again, I'm with you. Rusty Wright, guys, go look at how he's built up that program. Last year was their best year, 8-5, and they are now number 9 in the preseason FCS poll. So don't forget what happened with Tennessee and Austin Peay last year that made everybody red flags. Watch them out for Chattanooga.
They'll believe they can play with Tennessee, but they can't. No,
they can't. UTEP has a new head coach, and they are coming off a 3-9 season themselves. Their new head coach is Scotty Walden. That it's a late game. It's the final game. It's senior day. That's the senior day game for Tennessee. I don't think they're going to slip up on that one. I mean, they're going to just absolutely wreck UTEP. So that UTEP can't compete with them at all either.
All right. So where do we go next?
Now the fun begins. Well, okay, the fun semi begins. There's also just another really, really easy, laughably sleepable game.
I thought the Kent State coach was pretty fun.
Kent State was fun. Coach was fun. That's the best one. By the way, just for people who want to know, he was a running backs coach before he became a head coach. And that's the number one position you don't hire directly to a head coach. Like if you want to promote a quarterbacks coach to head coach, maybe, right, Dave? But you don't promote a running backs coach to head
It's
coach.
the reason Trooper Taylor wanted to coach receivers so he could learn the entire offense. So you're right. There is a stigma with just being the running back coach. And oftentimes stigma is that you're just a recruiter. And oftentimes the stigma, not so much now, but previously in my career, has dealt with racial stereotypes. But that's a whole different topic. Who's next on Tennessee?
Well, he didn't help that when he said, I never wanted to call play.
Oh, no. So, no. Well, I don't want to get sidetracked on the racial stereotype thing, but it is out there. All right, so who's next?
Vanderbilt's 9th. That's the easiest SEC game. Tennessee is going to face Clark Lee's team in Nashville. So, that's going to be a really tough, hostile environment for Tennessee, Dave.
Difficult. Neyland West. All right, who's next?
Number 8, the other easier game for Tennessee, who they never lose to, is Kentucky. Theoretically, Kentucky should be higher on the list. There are tougher teams. There are teams on this list that Kentucky is tougher than. But Tennessee never loses to Kentucky. They get Kentucky at home, and here's the big one, Dave. They get Kentucky off a bye. Heupel doesn't lose off a bye.
Yeah, and I just don't think Kentucky's going to have the team speed anytime soon to compete with Tennessee and their roster. Arkansas, I would say the exact same thing about.
Yes, the only difference between Arkansas and Kentucky is actually better than Arkansas, but Arkansas is on the road. And Arkansas is not Kentucky, who Tennessee just automatically beats. But I think Tennessee will still beat Arkansas. Again, they have Arkansas off a bye. So, and Sam Pittman's going to be reeling. And by the way, last year, Tennessee beat Bobby Petrino off a bye. And they get to face Bobby Petrino off a bye this year.
Well, and I don't think his offense is all that difficult to stop. You talk about coach as the game is passing by. He would be one of those. I'm trying to remember which game is that exactly?
That's game like 5, I think. I think that's 5 or 6.
You'll wonder what it's like in Fayetteville with the coaching situation. Is it starting to go south? I mean, there could be issues there that certainly would not surprise me. Let's continue with the list, as so far we have run down Kent State, Chattanooga, UTEP, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Arkansas. You've got Florida at number 6. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that you must have picked Florida because of the history of the series. So I'm going to go ahead and say that based off roster, the Vols have a greater chance to lose to Kentucky and Arkansas than the University of Florida.
No, I disagree. And here's why. It's not just the history. The history does have a factor. It's the bye factor. Josh Heupel's coming off a bye to face Arkansas and Kentucky. And Josh Heupel is amazing off a bye.
Okay.
So that's why I put Florida at 6.
But who do they play before they play Florida?
I actually think they play Arkansas before they play Florida, funny enough. I'm pulling up the schedule now to make sure I get my dates right, which I pulled up yesterday. Yeah, so they play Arkansas the week before Florida. So Florida should be the easier team, but because Arkansas is on the road, but coming off a bye and the history of the series makes Florida tougher than Kentucky or Arkansas.
Okay. Based off roster, I'm going to say right now that Tennessee will be a bigger favorite over. They'll be a bigger favorite over Florida than Arkansas and Kentucky.
Well, maybe
because I think the wheels are going to come off at Florida.
Well, they're going to come off early. I think Florida could easily be 1-4 going into this game. Florida plays Miami, Texas A&M, and Mississippi State.
I mean, I think they're playing the decade of dysfunction Florida Gators.
They really are.
So to me, but anyway, we'll debate that one.
They're the New York Mets South.
And you would have Mississippi State, too. You're higher on their coaching staff than me. That would be another one that I would say Tennessee will be favored more against Florida than Mississippi State.
Well, that's why I have Mississippi State ahead of Florida. That's tougher than Florida.
Oh, well, that makes sense then. Sorry.
Yeah, I have them tougher than Arkansas and Kentucky.
Right.
Mississippi State is the ultimate trap game of trap games, guys. They are going to be the surprise team of the year. They're not going to go, when I say surprise, and you know what I mean, Dave, they're not going to go like 10-2 or 11-1, But a team that everybody thinks is going to be 3-9 is going to be in a bowl game at the end of the year, and is going to make a push against some elite teams. You know what I'm talking? That type of team.
Yes.
Mississippi.
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Mississippi State has the new hot young offensive coach in the SEC in Jeff Lebby. Almost said Billy Napier. And Jeff Lebby. He was Josh Heupel's offensive coordinator, and he was Lane Kiffin's offensive coordinator, and he's developed in the Art Briles, Kendall Briles system. The dude is an offensive juggernaut, has been waiting for a head coaching job. And more importantly, Dave, and here's the big one, Tennessee plays them a week before they go to Georgia. And it's homecoming weekend when they play them. You don't think there's going to be distractions everywhere when they're facing Mississippi State that week?
No, because I think Tennessee will be undefeated at that point because that's before the Georgia game. So I think they're undefeated and riding high, and I don't think you overlook people when they're greater
Here's
things.
Another quick history lesson. I don't know why they made Mississippi State homecoming. That homecoming game is on November the 9th. The last time Tennessee played a homecoming game on November the 9th was 2002 when they named Miami their homecoming game and they lost 26-3.
It's the worst bludgeoning that I've ever covered. Seriously, that could have been 500 to 0. I have never covered a game where it's just like that team is so much better. They're going to beat them 26 to whatever they decide.
Remember when Cedric Houston had a clear path for a touchdown on the first play of the game, and then who was it? Was it I forget the safety that just called him from 30 yards behind, called up with him? Was that? I thought Ed Reed had already gone pro.
Yeah, I think he had. They had another great one. Oklahoma, number 4. We can get help on the message board of that one. You like Oklahoma to be Tennessee's 4th toughest opponent? That does not surprise me because it's on the road. What surprises me is you've got NC State number 3. Explain yourself, sir, because nobody would agree with you here.
Are you asking about NC State versus Oklahoma or NC State versus anybody else I named?
NC State versus Oklahoma.
NC State is week 2. Think Pitt 2 years ago. Tennessee's got a very good young team, but it's going to take a couple of games to develop a little bit of chemistry and a little bit of a flow.
And to back Caleb, Cooper and Jacob both said the Pitt game was huge in what happened in 2022. That had they not pulled that out, could have been a whole different feel on that team. That was a monster game. Maybe bigger than the Alabama game because the Alabama game doesn't happen if the Pitt game doesn't happen.
That's 1,000% true. The Alabama game happened because Tennessee was riding a wave of momentum that started with the Pitt game. That's what this NC State game is. It's going to be rough. They're going to have to fight. They're going to struggle. And NC State has a very solid program under Dave Doeren. They're number 22 to start the year. This is a neutral site game, but it is in North Carolina. And I think while Tennessee is better, it will be it. Think about it this way, Dave. Those teams that you're better than, but it's September and it's a messy game because the other team is pretty good. Syracuse, 98. Tennessee was significantly better than Syracuse, but that was a messy game. That's what this is because you're trying to come together. I think Tennessee pulls it out, but it's a messy game. The reason Oklahoma is on the list is that's 2 weeks later. Man, guys, if Tennessee beats NC State, and then they're obviously going to beat Chattanooga and Kent State, they'll be 3-0 riding high with confidence going to Norman. And I'm telling you right now, Heupel is going to throw the kitchen sink at Oklahoma because he's going to be ready to not just humiliate them for what they did to him, but that's Nico's Heisman moment. Oklahoma is the game that makes Nico the Heisman frontrunner.
Frontrunner?
Frontrunner. Okay. After Oklahoma, because everybody's going to talk about Colorado again at the start of the year because we're going to just do that for the next few years when Deion's there. After Oklahoma, that is the week where Tennessee starts getting talked about more than any other team in college football, and we will be the sexiest podcast around, guys. I'm predicting. I'm dead serious on this. I'm predicting, Dave, that, and this is wishful thinking, but I am predicting that the Oklahoma game sparks us skyrocketing in subscribers because everybody's going to want to know about Tennessee after that.
I don't doubt that. And they'll like to get the inside scoop. So we certainly appreciate those that make the program possible. And that includes our good friend Rick Terry Jewelry Design. And I want to tell you about, again, if I may take 1 second, the Great 8 Challenge, because it doesn't cost you a penny to be a free member at Hooker's Corner. Subscribe to the channel and you will be entered in Rick Terry's Great 8 Garmin Challenge, where we will give away a Garmin for free to one lucky listener. Now, if you want to join Hooker's Corner, you can do that right there and be eligible for our fantastic monthly prizes. We'll have the announcement on the monthly prize on Monday. It was a John Henderson autographed helmet last month. It's been a Tony Vitello ball, so pretty good stuff. So join Hooker's Corner, maybe a newsletter coming up as well. But join Hooker's Corner for free, or if you want to be eligible for that monthly prize and get a free t-shirt just for buying that first month, then join. Just $9.98. Pretty strong. All right. Tennessee's top 2 games. I think this one is probably the easiest part of your list, right? Alabama number 2, Georgia number 1. I don't think Georgia can slip from being Tennessee's toughest opponent. Can Alabama slip? Yes. I mean, we think that Calhoun DeBoer is going to have success at Alabama, not Saban-like, but we don't know that. And there is an adjustment, I think, to the SEC, and there's an adjustment having new players that you don't know. So Georgia's a lock. I couldn't argue with you there on any count, but Alabama could slip from the 2 position.
They could. Yeah, let's just make sure we get Georgia out of the way. They're the most talented team in the country. They're starting the year number 1, and Tennessee plays them on the road. They would be the toughest game for anybody, anywhere, any place, anytime in college football. So that's obviously number 1. Alabama, I struggled with this, Dave, because I actually think that given the circumstances, NC State could be tougher than Alabama. They're not better than Alabama. They're not better than Alabama. They're not more talented. They won't finish better than Alabama. But when Tennessee plays NC State versus when they're playing Alabama and they get Alabama at Neyland, that changes things. And here's the big thing. I do believe that Calhoun DeBoer is a good offensive coach who runs a good system. I don't believe Jalen Milroe is a fit for what he wants to do. I think you're going to have a quarterback controversy in Tuscaloosa by the end of September. And I got to be honest. Nick Saban did an amazing coaching job last year, really taking over the offense and taking it over for Jalen Milroe and simplifying it and making him a first read and run quarterback. Calhoun DeBoer's offense doesn't do that.
I'll say this, and you and I have differed before, and we differ a little here. I'm hearing good things about Jalen Milroe out of practice. I was with you like a week ago, and I may still end up being with you, but he may be taking to this offense a little bit better than we thought. Just based off an Alabama source.
I don't believe this is one of those where, like, even if the source tells me that, like, I can't believe it because of what I know. That doesn't mean I can't believe Jalen Milroe can't be a good quarterback.
Right, which is fair for you not to believe it. Why? Because all practices are closed.
Yes. This system is literally the opposite of what Jalen Milroe can do. Jalen Hurts couldn't run this offense. The air raid, you have to be able to go through progressions quickly and fling the ball to any part of the field, right? That's the rule of the air raid.
No, absolutely agree. No question about it. Our friends at TriStar Hats, go ahead and click on that QR code there, and you can pick up a fantastic piece of TriStar memorabilia. They've got hats, shirts, and more. Use the promo code HOOKED and get 10% off. The promo code HOOKED and get 10% off. And then, my goodness, Caleb is trying to just get me in trouble. But when he explained it at the 3:45 a.m. production meeting, it made some sense. Coaches on the hot seat.
Say when.
Say when. Absolutely right.
Wait,
what was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
All right, let's be real clear. This is coaches who could be on the hot seat after the 2024 season. So, Caleb, this is not a hot seat list. So I want you, in your own words, to describe the difference, because it's out there some, and some people, are, including me, may disagree quite a bit.
These are coaches who are not on the hot seat. They will be here next year at their schools if they want to be. And if there's no scandal, because, scandals can come out of nowhere. But these are coaches who, exactly. These are coaches where if something happens, if they don't perform the way their team expects to this year, they could be on the hot seat entering next year.
Okay. Now I want to set the parameters. So you're talking about a significantly disappointing season, but not the bottom falling out. You're not talking about any of these programs suddenly winning one game or something insane. Say like Stanford did with David Shaw. Remember, they won 10 games and then they won like 3. Or you're not talking about anything like that, right?
Right. I'm not talking about that.
That would have even gotten Saban semi on hot seat if they win 3
That's a shock jock at that point if I were to do that. Yeah. It's not that at all. They're not guaranteed to be here past 2025. How about that? They're not guaranteed to be at their school past 2025 by choice.
Okay. I disagree with a lot of these, but I'm curious what the message board says. And I respect Caleb's opinion. I'm going to start with Kirk Ferentz, Iowa.
That's crazy.
They're not going to do better than Kirk Ferentz. They love Kirk Ferentz. He's been there forever. They're a program developing, a player developing type of program. That's what they have to be. Kirk could be there until the end of time.
This is not going to come from Iowa. This is going to come from the Big Ten offices. One, Iowa doesn't have the Big Ten West to fall back on anymore because there's no division, so their schedule just got a lot harder because they actually have to play Ohio State now. They actually have to play better schools. And so Kirk Ferentz, if they go 8-4, 8-5 this year, the pressure from the Big Ten office that you can't do that with all this money we're doing, you got to be more serious about this, I think could really have Kirk Ferentz's seat hot entering 2025.
Okay. I think he's perfectly fine heading into 2025 and 2026 until he's ready to retire.
That's crazy.
That'll be my take. Mac Brown.
That's crazy.
I'm just going to tell you, it's the same argument. I don't think they can do better than Mac Brown, so I think Mac Brown can retire at Tar Heel.
I think they're going to think they can do better, and Mac Brown has not had fewer than 5 losses in a year. Now, North Carolina would typically settle for that, but Dave, there's an underlying factor here. Mac Brown's one is 72. 2, North Carolina is going to prioritize being good in football because you and I know this. If they get their ducks in a row, they will, more than any other school in the nation, have the 2 biggest conferences in a bidding war to land them when the ACC breaks up.
Mac Brown needs to worry about his job when North Carolina joins either the Big Ten or the SEC. I don't think he has to be concerned about it then. 15 seconds from Neubert Collision.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Okay, again, Caleb, tell me the definition of this list so everybody doesn't flip out and think that you're crazy.
If the coach, what you want the definition?
I want
first.
the explanation.
I just want to lead into this because if the coach underperforms this year, they could be on the hot seat going into 2025. Now you want me to give you number 8.
And he's got doesn't really need pipe because it's not.
I'm a very smart man and I have very, very smart ideas.
You say if the bottom falls out that Josh Heupel could be on the hot seat. Well, that's a huge monstrous if, because both of us believe that they're going to have a successful year.
Josh Heupel could be on the hot seat. Yes, that is my take.
There's so much riding on this year. Any coach that hasn't won a championship or some that have could be on the hot seat.
No, Josh Heupel could because he's entering his 4th year and everything was put in on this year. So here's where I'm getting at with Josh Heupel.
Kirby Smart at one point had them knocking at the door of a championship and they couldn't topple Alabama. And he was semi on the hot seat. Some Georgia fans weren't happy. Everybody's on the hot seat.
No, there's official hot seats. If Tennessee goes 8-4 this year, if they go 8-4 and miss the playoff, Josh Heupel should be on the hot seat entering 2025, barring injury.
Travis says if he loses 4 games, I'm personally turning on him.
There you go, Travis. And by the way, we don't think that's going to happen. But you don't think losing 4 games is absolutely impossible, right? That could absolutely happen.
And I think we would both say aside from an injury season, right?
Yes, aside from an injury season.
Yeah.
I think Josh Heupel, but if there's a rash of injuries, and that's the 2nd year in a row that happens, Look, I'm just going to say this up front. There are some questions about Heupel's strength and conditioning program because there's a belief that he focuses on getting you very much in shape athletically, but not putting on the weight and muscle you need to be able to sustain hits. There are some questions.
Well, I don't know who's questioning that. I think they've got a fantastic strength and conditioning program.
Look at what happened last year.
Well, I mean, when you're talking about, well, anyway, we'll do that another time. But I think that you were talking about, there's a difference between bone injuries and tendon injuries. You can't help breaking a bone. You can put too much stress on a muscle and make it too tight. But anyway, that's a long topic. Deion Sanders, I think he's gone after this year because his kids are gone.
You think he's bailing, period. Yes. I think if he's not bailing, let me be clear on this. Because amidst all the stuff and all the circus around Deion, the story of Deion Sanders, if he wasn't Deion Sanders, is this. He took a 1-11 team and went 4-8. He's got that program on the right track. If you just take all the noise out and you look at Deion Sanders in Colorado, that's what you think, right? Program on the right track, 1-11 to 4-8. Well, they're in the Big 12 now. I think it's reasonable to expect that they take another step to get to 6-6 or 7-5, right? This year. If they go 4-8 again,
I think they're going to have a very similar season. He's going to be like, this stinks.
If they go 4-8 again, because of all of his talk and all of his bluster, he absolutely enters 2025 on the hot seat, particularly when he's losing Shedeur Sanders after this year, his own son. So if he does stay at Colorado, he's not going to have his Heisman caliber son at quarterback, who masked a lot of the deficiencies last year. And he's losing Travis Hunter. So he could enter 2025 on the hot seat.
All right, we've got 6 more to get through. Mark Stoops, Kentucky, you're crazy. He's going to be there.
That's crazy.
Come on. None of these. Now, I'm about to agree with you on the next one. I've only agreed. Which one have I agreed with you on? Deion is basically it.
Mark Stoops can't hide behind playing in the SEC East anymore and then playing 4 easy opponents. The SEC just got tougher. He's got to play Ole Miss, Texas, at Tennessee. He's got to play Georgia. So he can't. And John Adams broke this down to me before, and I didn't even realize it. Mark Stoops pads his September schedule, and that's how he constantly gets to 6-6. He just had to forfeit his 10-win season at Kentucky, which pushes his winning record to below 500. I think if he has a really, really, really bad year this year, Kentucky fans will start to think the next year they'll start to think maybe we could go in a different direction.
I think they're more worried about basketball, and basketball now is in flux, so that could be.
They're in big trouble there, Mark Pope.
Yeah. So here we go. Number 5, Britt Venables.
Hey now.
I agree with you there. I think he will be on the hot seat in 2026. As a matter of fact, I might have him number 1.
2025, you mean? He'll be on the hot seat.
Yes, 2025. Excuse me. And then Jake Dickert at Washington State. I don't know much about Jake Dickert at Washington State.
No winning seasons, 5-7 last year with Cam Ward, who was a Heisman candidate. Cam Ward is gone. He's entering his 4th year. He got a bit of a break because he took over because the Washington State head coach was violating state laws on COVID mask rules. I don't care how you feel about COVID. I don't want to get into that. That's just how he got the job. So he got a lot of sympathy for how he dealt with taking over the job.
Now, the top 3 would surprise you because one just played for a national championship, Sonny Dykes. And then you have, for those that say he's too much of an LSU guy, which he's not, he just respects them, Brian Kelly. And then before we get to number 1, I want to tell you that I completely agree with your number 1. I can't go with you with Dykes and Kelly, though.
Dykes is doing exactly what he did what probably could have gotten him fired at other places. And what I mean by this is he had a very splash first year. The luckiest run in the history of college football, by the way. TCU should have lost like 5 games that year. I mean, they were the luckiest team in the history of college football. Then he fell to 5-7 last year. TCU is in the Big 12. This is the program that Gary Patterson built that was very close to making the college football playoff multiple times before Sonny Dykes. If they have another 5-7 season, you don't think they'll enter 2025 on the hot seat?
If they have another 5-7 season, I'm just having trouble seeing that.
Okay, fair enough.
And also, let's remember this. I mean, the expectations of TCU are going to be a lot lower. I mean, if you won a championship at Georgia and then went 5-7 and 5-7, you're probably going to be on the hot seat. I mean, those 2 embarrassing years. But at TCU, you still point to, and they're probably still having a discussion, should they build a statue? I mean, TCU hasn't been competitive, and they were that 1 year under Sonny Dykes.
Well, but Dave Aranda's on the hot seat this year after going 3-9 at Baylor, even though he went 12-2 2 years ago. You could see him go from 5-7 to 3-9, and then he really is on the hot seat.
Yeah.
So
I guess I don't see 5-7, but if it's 5-7 again, yes, I'll put him on the hot seat in 2025.
Okay, you're number one.
Yes.
We got to talk Brian Kelly too.
Yes.
Because you disagree with me on that.
Yes. He's good.
Guys, I thought here's the thing with LSU. They didn't open the checkbook for Brian Kelly to go 10-4 and then 10-3 in 2 years in a row. They opened the checkbook for Brian Kelly because they felt what I felt. They know what I know, which is that if they hire a coach with brain cells, which they hadn't done since Nick Saban, that the talent in Louisiana should make it easy for them to win multiple national championships. We're talking 4, 5, whatever that LeBron thing was, not 6, not 7. Brian Kelly went 10-3 his second year at LSU with a Heisman-winning quarterback. He's lost that quarterback to the NFL. He has grossly mismanaged the defense. I'm going to say this. Last year's 10-3 season for LSU was the second worst coaching job anybody did in college football.
Second worst. All right. So number 1, you have Lincoln Riley.
The worst coaching job anybody did.
The worst. It's pretty bad. Number 1, you have Lincoln Riley. Has the shine come off of any player quicker than it has off Lincoln Riley?
No. He had LA in his back pocket 2 years ago. He was the star of LA. And now, here's the thing about LA for those who don't know the market. It's kind of bandwagony, but I don't mind bandwagon fans because that's the rule. Like any other business, if you do a good job, people pay for your product. If you don't, they don't. So LA sports fans we will love you when you're winning. And when you're not winning, they're not going to be like New York or Philly media, right? They're not going to crucify you. They're just not going to care. They're going to be like, all right, I'll go pay attention to something else. So the thing you have to fear in LA more than anything is not being in the headlines. Because if you're not in the headlines, there's a problem. USC was not in the headlines in LA last year. Nobody cared about them. That is the worst thing that can happen to you at USC. They fell up with the Heisman winner returning at quarterback. They went 7-5. I've never seen a coach this long. I mean, there's going to be issues with Josh Heupel that we're asking about now because he's got to prove it too. But he seems like this is a test year for him on this. But I've never seen a coach like Lincoln Riley go this long as a coach and just never even try to improve his defense. He's the Kirk Ferentz of offensive coaches. Like he is to defense what Kirk Ferentz is to offense.
All right. We have some breaking news, semi-breaking news on recruiting. And by the way, we're going to end every program with a bit of a recruiting wrap-up that you'll be able to take advantage of on Hooker's Corner, but also if you're a live viewer, we want you to be able to watch it right here. So hang tight 2 minutes because things are happening live as we speak. So we want to make sure we give you the right info. Hang tight with me. Actually, not even 2 minutes. Give me some news on David Sanders, Caleb, the show represented by Banks and Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? Banks and Jones, T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. All right. It appears as if David Sanders has been predicted to Tennessee by On3 Steve Wiltfong, who I have a lot of respect for. He's been on the program before, and basically he's almost never wrong. I can't recall a big prediction in which he's been wrong. How big is this for Tennessee if Sanders ends up a Vol?
Oh, it would be huge. this whole class is being built through the trenches beyond George McIntyre. Everybody's talking about that. George McIntyre is the face of it, but you're getting a bunch of edge rushers and defensive linemen and offensive linemen and tight ends. And if you get David Sanders, that's a prized bull. And I mean, he really is. And we're talking a top 3 prospect, period. The number 1 offensive lineman across all rating services. And it's big that this that this prediction was made now, because I thought Ohio State, it was one thing if these predictions were made before the last month, but Ohio State was clearly making a run at this kid. And I think they were opening some NIL money to get him. So if this prediction is being made now, that's a big deal. Dave, I'm just going to ask you, am I crazy to say that if he does commit, he's a bigger pickup than George McIntyre?
No, I don't think so. No, I'm going to say, yes, you're crazy. Not completely crazy, but I'm going to say McIntyre would be the bigger pickup because how much I've been told he's actively recruiting for Tennessee. So I think McIntyre will actually bring in some commitments, whereas Nico brought in commitments because of his reputation, but he wasn't a big recruiter for Tennessee. So I'll take McIntyre given that. But I won't argue with you that getting a number 1 offensive tackle is closer than a lot of people think to getting a number 1 quarterback.
I agree. When's the last recruiting class you covered where the offensive lineman was the star of the class? The signee on the offensive line.
I guess it would be Michael Munoz.
Oh yeah, he was. But that was like just as recruiting services were starting. I don't think he would have been a 5-star the top.
Well, and it was because of his name too. I mean, this kid's legit. Nobody's questioning him. And honestly, when Michael Munoz showed up, it was obvious that there was a ceiling there. He was only going to be so good, and he was not as talented as his dad.
Wasn't Kosi Coleman a bigger deal than Jamal Lewis or Deion Grant when they all signed together? Wasn't he probably the biggest star of the group coming out?
I wouldn't be surprised if he ranks higher than both of those. No, I wouldn't be surprised at all. As a matter of fact, there weren't recruiting rankings there, but I'll reach out to Fred White and see if he remembers who was the highest rated. But I think Kosi Coleman might have been the highest rated among those 3. So there was another prospect we want to talk about, and we're going to close the show each and every day with recruiting talk. And a prospect that I want you to be aware of, as we'll have today's top prospect right now, is a young man out of Rome, Georgia, Jaden Harmon, that I'm hearing Tennessee is making a strong push for. He's currently an Alabama commit, but this shows a lot of guts to go up after a Georgia kid who's been committed to Alabama. I don't know that Tennessee can land him, but that's one well worth watching. He is a 6'1", 205-pound linebacker in this upcoming class. Again, out of Rome, Georgia, listed as a 4-star across the board. Be pretty interesting to see if Tennessee could steal a commitment from the University of Alabama in year 1 and Caleb DeBoer.
I agree. I don't think they're going to spend too much time on Jaden Harmon, though, because I don't think they'd be able to. And then Clemson apparently would be like the second in the leader. And he's a 4-star, but not like not like a borderline 5-star, like a clear 4-star. So what's the risk reward with the amount of work you're putting in? Here's my theory on Jaden Harmon. You ready for this, Dave?
I'm ready.
I don't know if this happens in recruiting. You can help me. I know it happens in politics where candidates will campaign in a state that they know they aren't going to win, or that they know they've already won because they want the other side to think that they have to spend campaign in that state and waste resources. I think Tennessee may be targeting Jaden Harmon to make sure Alabama wastes its resources trying to keep him rather than going after other players Tennessee wants.
So like a misdirection sort of thing.
Yes. Yes, I think he's a misdirection. Does that ever happen in recruiting? Do you ever hear a coach try to just leak to the press, oh, this guy's interested in us, just so the other school feels like they have to do more of their own legwork and extra work to try to get the guy?
I'm sure you make a couple of phone calls to be a bit annoying. Like if Alabama beats you for a 5-star kid, I'm sure you just call him once a week just to check in and say hello. Is that kind of what you're talking about? Even if you know you're not going to get him, he's on your once a week call list.
Mm-hmm. And then you have a source leak to the media that he's second guessing his decision, right?
Ouch. So questioning the reporting here. All right. So he's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. We're live with you weekdays at 10 a.m. Record
What about
crowd
stat of
here.
the day?
Yeah. Oh, stat of the day. Let's go stat of the day right now. What do you got, Caleb Calhoun?
Yeah, we got to send a shout out to the late, great Reggie Cobb. In 1929, Gene McKeever rushed for 18 touchdowns, set a school record for Tennessee. No Tennessee player rushed for more than 14 from that point on until 1987, when Reggie Cobb rushed for 17 touchdowns. And I'm saying 17 because today's August the 9th, 8-9. That is 17. Reggie Cobb rushed for 17 touchdowns in 1987. Doing that, by the way, as a true freshman, interestingly enough.
The last time I saw Reggie Cobb run with the football?
When was it?
I was in Tampa, Florida, and they ran a trailer for the Tampa Bay Bucks before a movie at a movie theater, and he was the star of the trailer. Obviously, things didn't work out, but that's how highly they thought of him, and he had his personal demons, and God rest his soul. But you talk about a talented running back, he's right. You start listing Tennessee guys, he needs to be in your top 3. Would you agree or disagree with that?
It's tough for top 3 in talent because Chuck Webb was the most talented.
Webb's
probably
one of my 3. Yes.
Jamal Lewis is one of the 3.
Webb, Lewis is my other. Yeah, that's my 3.
So you I could maybe get with that. But then there's like James Stewart, but you might be right. Reggie Cobb, we know about his demons. He passed away early, victim of the times of the 80s. He was. We have to point this out. And I know this because I actually did a little bit of production assistant work on the 30 for 30 documentary on Lynn Bias, Dave, at Maryland. But it's underrated how often innocent young athletes were targeted by drug dealers in the 80s. I mean, targeted heavily by drug dealers in the 80s. And
I did not know that.
We know what all was happening. It ran so rampant, and there were no resources by the university to help for kids to get help during that time.
Definitely more options now, but still plenty of pitfalls for our youth. Say a prayer every day.
And by the way, and I don't want to knock, I think Johnny Majors, if he had his choices, would try to get, I don't think anybody cared more about his players than Johnny Majors did. So I think he would have done everything he could to get a kid help, but I just don't think he had
I think he did. I mean, by keeping him on the team, I thought as long as he did, I mean, let's face it. I mean, it's the coach that institutes that. I thought he kept him on the team probably longer than the rules would have allowed by what he did. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Don't forget, 10 a.m. weekdays. This is Off the Hook Sports.